Welcome everyone to the final day in round one of the International Reparation Debate Competition for 2025. So far, we've seen 9 schools battle it out tooth and nail to secure that coveted spot in round 2 of this competition. 3 days of exciting matches, tackling issues across the wide subsection of the reparation movement. And today, to contest, we have 2 teams, Clarendon College and Rawlins Academy from the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure this is going to be a wonderful match. But of course, it would not have been possible without some very key sponsors and partnerships. And I'd like to take the opportunity right now to give a big deal shout out to our partners, the University of the West Indies, CARICOM, the CARICOM Reparations Commission, the Center for Reparations Research, the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment, the Repair Campaign, the PJ Patterson Institute for Africa, Caribbean Public Advocacy, and the University of Hull. We would not be right here right now having this wonderful debate series without our very, very important and committed sponsors and partners. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Ravon Thomas Matthews, and I will be the chair judge for this match. I will be accompanied by 2 other judges, my wing judges, and I'll invite them to introduce themselves, starting with Miss Natalia Burton.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natalia Burton. I'm currently serving as the wellness specialist here at Jade, and I will be one of the wing adjudicators for this match. Looking forward to a very engaging and fruitful debate.
Thank you, Natalia. And Downey, we'll ask you to introduce your name, just your name for us, Mr. Javon Downey, and share some few encouraging words to our team members as well.
Good morning, everyone. The name is Ravon Downey, like Ravon just said, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting and riveting match today. All the best to both teams.
Thank you very much to my very competent and equally excited as I am wing adjudicators. Now, earlier, I told you the 2 teams that will be contesting this match, Clarendon College will form the proposition team, and Rawlins Academy who will be the opposition. At this point in time, I want to allow the teams to introduce themselves, starting with the proposition team, Clarendon College.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shanika Lewin, the first speaker from Team Proposition.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Bradford, second speaker for Team Proposition.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shanika Willis, the third speaker from Clarendon College side proposition.
Thank you very much, Clarendon College. And we invite Team Rawlins Academy, UK, to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are the debate team of Rawlins Academy in the UK. I'm Clara Byford, and I am leader of opposition.
I'm Iris Billing, and I'm speaker 2. I'm Ida Chohan, and I'm speaker 3.
Wonderful. Thank you very much to both teams. Now, teams, you know the rules, but for the sake of our viewing audience, I'm going to run through it very quickly. The first speech will last for 7 minutes, the second 6 minutes, the third 5 minutes. The first and last minute of each speech is what we call protected time, in which no points of information will be allowed. Outside of protected time, of course, points of information are allowed, and they are absolutely encouraged. And of course, in between the speeches, we have that crowd pleaser, that really wonderful and exciting period of cross-examination. And you'll hear a little bit about that period when the time comes. Now, you've heard enough from me. It's time to hear from the teams. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion before us reads, this House opposes former colonizers having influence over decisions regarding the use of the reparations they have paid. Once more, This House opposes former colonizers having influence over decisions regarding the use of the reparations they have paid. To open this debate and provide the first speech, we invite from Clarendon College, Shaniqua Lewin. And we're ready when you are ready, Shaniqua.
Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, I will begin my speech. A pleasant good morning, honorable adjudicators, esteemed opposition.
That was some inconvenience.
Sorry about that. I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. A pleasant morning, honorable adjudicators, esteemed opposition, and fellow benchmates. We strongly affirm that former colonizers should not have an influence over decisions regarding the use of reparation they have paid. Allow me to define key terms. Reparation is defined by History.org as the compensation owed by those who have inflicted harm, injustice, or exploitation upon others, recognizing their moral and historical debts to restore what was unjustly taken or destroyed. Colonizers are entities or individuals who unjustly claim and exploit lands, resources, and people that were never theirs to begin with, motivated by greed and a belief in their own superiority. Next are the burdens of this debate. We, the proposition, must prove that former colonizers should not have any influence over how reparations they have paid are utilized by the countries or communities that receive them. The proposition, by contrast, must argue that former colonizers should have some level of influence over are paid or utilized. This leads to a module that states that reparations should be influenced by post-colonizers. Our alternatives to this issue are neutral and biased international bodies, example, the United Nations, the NGOs are independent consultants, not through continued influence by former colonizers themselves. Collaboration can be done outside of telling post-colonists what should be done with reparation. Therefore, opposition sense of collaboration effort is void. My first substantive, allowing former colonizers to influence the use of reparation is to allow them to maintain control over the countries they once colonized. Warrant to this claim is it undermines the very concept of justice, perpetuates a dynamic of control, and contradicts the moral principle of reparation, which is meant to restore dignity, agency to the affected nations. By giving former colonizers influence over decisions as simple as how to spend the money that was owed to us, we are perpetuating a system where they continue to hold power over independent nations. Moreover, the act of paying reparation is an acknowledgement of guilt. It is not an act of generosity, nor it is a bargaining chip. The moral responsibility should rest on the shoulders of those who have caused the harm, but once reparations are paid, former colonizers should have no further say in how these resources are used. Their role should end with payment, allowing the former colonizers the dignity of making their own decision as they have their own autonomy. My second warrant is morally. The party responsible for causing the harm is not entitled to dictate how the harmed party utilize compensation. To allow former colonizers influence over these decisions would perpetuate a dynamic of control, undermining the principle of reparation, which is to restore agency dignity to those who have suffered historical injustice. It would be a moral contradiction to grant the offender decision-making power over the cure. It has also been seen in history time and time again where they abused the Bible to justify the enslavement and subjugation of a whole race. Now they want to use reparation as a means to rope the post-colonial
Point of information.
not accepted, and gradually being ruled by them once again. I will not stand for it as it is unacceptable and extremely brazen to suggest such a thing. Dependency theory by Andre Gunter Frank states that when the former colonizers continue to have influence over how reparation are allocated or used in post-colonial nature, it represents an extension of economic control. Even though the nation may have the political sovereignty, its economic development is still shaped by the political priorities and interests and external powers. Why should we care? Mr. Speaker, could you imagine having the same people who benefit off of the former colonized are the ones that should have a say in how we spend our money? Money that was owed to us, wealth that was earned off of my people, people who are colonized, what can really go so? My second substance is the post-colonial nature are fully capable of managing reparation on their own. One of the most compelling examples of post-colonial nature effectively managing its own economic policies and development is China. And after gaining independence from Britain in 1947, India faced significant challenges: poverty, illiteracy, and heavily damaged economy due to the central of colonial exploitation. Despite these hurdles, India has successfully developed into one of the largest fast-growing economies in the world. India's ability to maintain its own economic policies, such as implementation of land reforms in the 1950s, the Green Revolution in 1960s, and the recent economic liberalization policies in the 1990s, demonstrate the post-colonial nature can take control of their own destiny and managing their vast resources effectively. India has also demonstrated institutional capacity in areas like space research, technology, and infrastructure. The country's economic success highlights the capability of a post-colonial nature to determine its own path and make decisions that benefit governance in the post-colonial context. After the end of apartheid in 1994, the country faced profound social and economic challenges. However, South Africa's ability to maintain its post-apartheid reconstruction, the implementation of policies like the Reconstruction and Development Program and the recent National Development Program, shows the country's institutional competence. South Africa's economic growth since 1994, along with its successful effort in the areas of education, health, and infrastructure development, proves that post-colonial nature can, with effective governance, manage their own resources and direct reparation into reconstruction. The African National Congress government has maintained a strong emphasis on reconciliation, building national unity while addressing economic disparities. South Africa's progress showcase the capacity of post-colonial natures to manage their own healing process without external interference. The impact if former colonizers continue to have a say in how funds are used, it risks colonies to exploitation, as they undermine the capability of these colonies, which could lead to more damage in these nations as the money is dispersed where it is not needed. The reparation should be a tool for healing, but if control remains in the hands of colonizers, it creates a situation where justice is never truly achieved because the affected nations will never fully regain their autonomy. It is morally contradiction to allow the party that caused the harm to dictate the process of healing. The proposition momentarily rests.
And thank you very much to the first proposition speaker from Clarendon College for opening this debate. At this point in time, we invite the first speaker from Rawlins Academy, Clara Byford, to extend the case, rather open the case for team opposition.
Good morning, esteemed judges, honourable chair, and my fellow debaters. This House believes former colonisers should have influence over decisions regarding the use of reparations they have paid. What the argument of principles of reparations overlooks is that reparations are the actions of making amends for a wrong. This also means a full apology and an action to show a party taking responsibility for what happens. However, former colonisers aren't truly taking responsibility for their actions if they aren't a part of making the outcome successful. We define former colonisers as countries who formed a colony or multiple colonies, in this case, those who benefited from the transatlantic slave trafficking. These are Portugal, Britain, Spain, France, the Netherlands, the United States, and Denmark. Reparations mean the action of making amends for a wrong one has done by providing payment or other assistance to those who have been wronged. Influence, meaning having the ability to put forward ideas and have a say, but also be responsible for the outcome. We acknowledge that the Caribbean has suffered while former colonizers have thrived, and there is no way that those who do not live with the generational trauma can fully understand the horrors that took place, the dehumanizing violence, sexual assault, and work till death. But we do acknowledge that and that we live in a different world. By this motion, we propose a panel of representees from the former colonizers and from CARICOM, who should all be able to help advise, put forward resources, be able to find and present options to place the money to prevent any misuse. There would also be experts from neither party to help provide a balanced view to make sure the money is being used most effectively. We, the opposition, believe the idea that reparations should be dealt with only and solely by the Caribbean is an idea that ultimately would lead to doing nothing to diminish the impacts of slavery. Former colonizers have benefited from enslavement, so paying back is part of the solution. But, as recognized by the 10-point CARICOM plan, a full and formal apology is essential. But does an apology truly mean anything if they don't understand the impacts? That's why we suggest their involvement. Former colonizers could also prevent any misuse of funds through corruption. According to the International Corruption Perceptions Index, the Caribbean countries have been subject to corruption. This is a chance for the Caribbean, a part of the world filled with untapped potential, stunted by enslavement, to further prove the former colonizers should have a say in reparations. We point out steps 5 and 6 in the 10-point CARICOM plan: assistance in remedying public health crisis and education programs. We accept the point of information.
You stated that the Caribbean is prone to corruption and that post-colonizers having a say in what reparations are used for will aid in reducing corruption. But is it corruption in these same very post-colonizers countries?
Yes, it is both available in the Caribbean and in the former colonizers. But this is why we must have both, to make sure we check each other and make sure both parties are both making sure that they are checked and uncorrupt, and making sure the money has a true impact on the legacy of enslavement. Okay, to continue. To further prove any former colonizers, we again point out steps 5 and 6 in the 10-point CARICOM plan, and assistance in remedying public health care crisis and education programs. By denying former colonizers a chance to influence, they cannot present resources they have created with the money partly from enslavement. If colonizers were allowed an influence, the Caribbean could use the resources funded by the profit of enslavement as additional reparations. Colonizers could aid the development of CARICOM and the Caribbean. In contemporary society, the issue of enslavement has become increasingly prevalent. We are not in a world where the power imbalances that existed in enslavement can exist today. We live in different ages, and though people still live with the consequences, we learn about the horror to prevent it from happening again. The Caribbean and the former colonizers must no longer be against each other in this modern world, to progress and work together, to move forward and truly acknowledge and abolish the legacy of enslavement. Many former colonies face challenges such as political instability, economic underdevelopment, and social inequality. Former colonizers have stable governments. Income equality in the Caribbean, which is its highest in the world, will fuel protests and political instability in much of the region. There are already high rates of crime and narcotics trafficking, which are likely to grow as poverty increases and resources for the police and judiciary shrink. By allowing former colonizers, you eventually stabilize the region, benefiting international society. The Caribbean are a society that has been through something horrific, a genocide of their culture, and now they are building it back. Their communities are strong and they develop and move forward despite the trauma, and Caribbean countries state they wish to educate and reintroduce the culture. This strength is an example to us all, and by allowing former colonizers, you allow them to broadcast it worldwide, putting the Caribbean as a strong centre to be seen as strong allies. Ultimately, the impact of enslavement cannot be forgotten, but its impact today has to be recognised by both parties and consequences to be repaired by both. Colonisers must have influence to prevent corruption, move forward, provide resources, and to allow them to fully apologise. Influence is in no way control. This is two developing countries communicating and finding a solution to abolish the struggles of slavery and enslavement. That is why we believe former colonisers should have a say in where reparations go and how they should be used in the Caribbean. Thank you.
And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Clara Byford from Team Rawlins Academy in the UK. At this point in time, we're going to enter into that period of cross-examination that I hinted at earlier. How this will work is that the opposition team will field questions to the proposition team. Only one individual from the opposition team is allowed to ask a question at any given point in time, but all of the proposing team, Clarendon College, is allowed to answer that question. You have 10 seconds to ask the question. Clarendon College, you have 30 seconds to answer the question. After the first question, we'll invite Rawlins Academy to ask another, and Clarendon College will invite you to answer. Teams, you have been briefed, and the time will start when you ask your first question, Rawlins Academy.
As you mentioned, there are United Nations to prevent the power imbalance as before. How could former colonisers do this again, since there are United Nations now?
Can you repeat the question?
As you mentioned, there are United Nations and other groups to help prevent the power imbalances that happened in slavery. How do you say that it can happen again with these groups in place?
Repeat the question again. We're not hearing you properly.
Okay. As you mentioned, there are United Nations and other groups to prevent the power imbalances that happened in slavery to happen again. How could the power imbalance happen again now that there are these groups?
All right, so first and foremost, we said that these groups are neutral groups that are not necessarily for anybody. So when post-colonizers influence what the reparations are used for, we risk basically the exposure to a society that has neo-colonialism, a society that is basically that everything that we're doing with the reparation has to have some sort of benefits for the post-colonizers, a society where we don't necessarily have any source of power, a society where the entire purpose of reparation is eradicated, as it is there to basically be an apology and not a gift that somebody tells us to use.
All right, your next question, Rawlins.
Part of an apology is to accept and fully understand. How are colonisers supposed to fully understand and be aware if we are not allowed a part and of the ability to be fully realising the outcome and the impacts?
Repeat the question.
How are former colonisers supposed to truly apologise, as in the 10-point CARICOM plan, if they are not allowed to be part of the outcome and fully understand the struggles?
The reparation itself is a form of apology. We, the former colonies, accept the reparation as apology. We think, though, that having influence over the decision we make with that reparation is overstepping the boundary.
And your next question, Rawlins.
If they were to have no say, would it not re-establish the disagreement and disjointment and almost enemies of the Caribbean and former colonizers? If they were to work together, would it not create allies?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Repeat the question, please.
If they were to work together to create a successful outcome, would it not counterbalance the division created by slavery?
No, it would not counterbalance any division made by slavery. The reparation, as I stated before, is an apology that we accept. However, we want full authority over the reparation as we are the country. Continue.
Additionally, let me state that reparation is not a diplomatic tool. Reparation is about justice, it's about restitution, it's about acknowledgement of wrongs. So the reparation is basically an apology for what is done. So once that reparation is given, they should not tell us what to do with it. When we spend our money, we can have other agreements outside of them telling us what to do with the reparations. I don't know. It is a misconception by you saying that reparation.
I'll address it in my speech.
And that concludes that first half of the cross-examination. We now invite Team Clarendon College to pose questions to Rawlins Academy. Teams, you're reminded to keep your microphones open during the period of cross. The time starts when you ask your first question, Clarendon College.
Okay. With post-colonizers influence principal risk of neocolonialism, how do you mitigate risk undermining the very goal of reparation, leading to continuation of neocolonialism and economic dependency?
Please, could you repeat the question?
Okay. With post-colonizers influence principal risk of neocolonialism, how do you mitigate risk undermining the very goal of reparation, leading to a continuation of neocolonialism and economic dependency?
The goal of reparations is for the former colonizers to give a money or other things to try and repair and try and somehow rectify, although we cannot rectify all of it, rectify it in some ways by creating a socio-economic infrastructure. We would also just like to say that former colonizers would in no way reinstating neocolonialism, as this would be a groups working together and in no way would be control. We would influence and have a say and be able to put forward ideas, but there would be a group to try and prevent any neocolonialism from occurring if we were to have a say.
Okay, so my second question is, if reparations are meant to correct historical injustices, how can former colonizers who committed those injustices be trusted to decide how the reparations are used?
With the independent adjudicator.
We can be trusted, the former colonizers can be trusted with this because we are no longer coming in as colonizers. We are coming in as people who want to help your equals, people who are willing to help a nation build themselves back up after the destruction they caused.
Oh, after the destruction former colonizers caused.
Okay, then follow up to that question. If former colonizers truly want to help, why do they need control over the money? Wouldn't genuine reparation mean letting the victim decide how to use it?
It is in no way control, it is influence. And we would just like to say that by former colonizers having a say, we would in no way be controlling, we would be putting forward ideas and being helpful. We, due to enslavement, the Caribbean there are no advanced developed countries in the Caribbean. We acknowledge this is us, and due to the fact that we are now more developed, Due to that fact, we want to help develop the Caribbean further because they have untapped potential that has been untapped because of the legacy of slavery, and weld the gap in the division. Thank you.
And thank you very much for that exciting period of cross-examination. At this point in time, we now invite the second speaker from Team Clarendon College to extend the case for that side of the house. That speaker, of course, being Davian Bradford.
Okay, beginning in 3, 2, 1. Our protocol, observing to the arising strong proposition of the motion, this House opposes former colonizers having influence over decision regarding the use of reparation they paid. First, I will distribute my rebuttal. Former colonizers did not act responsibility when they stole resources, enslaved population, and destabilized nations. Why should we trust them to act responsibly now, when even after former colonies received their independence, former colonizers still continue to exploit them? Secondly, many former colonies have strong economic policies and capable leadership. They do not need former colonizers acting as overseers. Mr. Speaker, I will now get into my first claim. My first claim is allowing former colonizers to influence reparation decision means they will prioritize their own interests over victims' nation needs. My first warrant is that historical evidence has shown former colonizers often push policies that benefit their economies while maintaining dependency in former colonies. Mr. Speaker, we have seen numerous times where former colonizers give reparation under the false pretense that it is to compensate victims for injustice, but in actuality, their true motive was to inconspicuously further exploit those nations. Evidence of such occurrence is France, who still controls CFA. France, the currency used in 14 African nations, effectively controlling their economy decades after their independence. Mr. Speaker, another evidence was Britain colonial reparation in Kenya in 2013. The UK agreed to pay £19.9 million in reparation to Kenyan victims of the British colonial violence during the Mau Mau uprising. According to the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, 250,000 Kenyans were barbarically executed, tortured, or injured during the crackdown and detained in horrendous conditions because they stood up for themselves against the oppression. Mr. Speaker, after that atrocity, British only compensated specific individuals and refused to acknowledge broader claims of land dispossession, economic exploitation that affected entire communities. The impact of their action is the UK maintained influence over Kenya through continued trade agreements and economic policies that favored British businesses, stifling Kenya's domestic industries. By controlling reparation, distribution, and denying full economic justice, British ensured Kenya remained economically tied to its former colonizers, preventing true independence. This reparation was clearly a conflict of interest and a lesson to be learned from. The overall impact of this is reparation must be empowering, not accepted, must be empoweringly formally, must be about empowering formerly colonized nations, not reinforcing the cycle of exploitation. This means reparation would not serve the victim of colonization, but instead continue benefiting perpetrators, as I established earlier with evidence. Former colonies would remain financially and politically dependent rather than achieving true economic sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, this demonstrates my claim is not theoretical. Former colonizers have maintained influence and we have seen where they have made bad decisions for the former colony. My second claim is that reparation must be treated former colonizers. They are a moral and financial debt owed for centuries of exploitation, violence, and theft. My first warrant, Mr. Speaker, is that colonization led to economic deprivation, source extraction, and cultural erosion that still impact former colonies today. A report from Oxfam International claims that between 1765 and the 1900, British colonial drained 64.8 trillion of India, significantly stifling industry growth, reducing share of global industrial output by 25%. This ties into the dependency theory of Andre Gunder Frank, which states that the economic underdevelopment of post-colonial nation is not just a historical issue, but a result of long-standing pattern dependency. My second warrant is if nations pay reparation, it is settling an obligation, just as a debtor pays back what they owe. Once that payment is made, the debtor has no right to dictate how the recipient spends it. The opponents may argue that former colonizers should have influence to ensure reparation are used effectively. The argument is paternalistic and hypocritical. Former colonizers have no moral authority to determine effective use when they were the ones causing the economic and mental destruction in the first place. Many former colonies have strong governance structure, economic experts, and policies. They do not need former colonizers to act as their guardians. Local government structure can implement local government structures can implement transparency mechanisms that ensure reparation are used effectively. When former colonizers are involved in this process, there may be less incentive to maintain transparency, as the focus could shift to meeting the expectation of former colonizers rather than the need of local population. It's like having a thief who stole millions from a family. Upon returning the stolen funds, they demand control over the victim spending the money. Mr. Speaker, would you allow this? Absolutely not. The same logic applies here. The impact of my work is that allowing colonizers to dictate reparation, exert power over the countries they once oppressed. This defeats the purpose of reparation as it continues the historical cycle of controlled subjugation. If reparation are meant to step into justice,
that is time elapsed, Clarendon College. Thank you very much. We now invite the second speaker from the Rawlins Academy, UK, Iris Billing, to extend the case for team opposition.
Good afternoon. We are here today to talk about whether former colonizers should have a say in the reparations are spent. The transatlantic enslavement trafficking was the forcible movement of millions of Africans across the Atlantic, where they would be forced to work and sold to slave owners who would make them work for free. Reparations is where former colonized countries are asking for money from the former colonizers because of the financial state those countries have been left in due to enslavement. One reason why this party believes former colonizers should have a say in where reparations are spent is that they may help set up systems that best benefit the people. These systems could be distributed into services such as education, healthcare, housing, sanitation, and other utilities that would help the nation become more advanced in ways of living. It would also be an overview to make sure that there is no mismanagement or corruption. Reparations are for the country to benefit from, not to be given to the government to spend how they like, when they like, in ways which might not benefit the people at all. It is not uncommon for developing nations to have high tourist rates to put more money into the tourist area. Accepted.
Okay, so you're saying that it might not benefit the people whatsoever. So if the colony get the reparation, who would it benefit if they don't spend it to benefit themselves?
Colonizers could use it as they've had more experience in areas to put it into better education, better healthcare. The colonizers are not doing it to benefit themselves, they are doing it to help and rebuild the country they destroyed. Thank you. Reparation. Anyway, as I was saying, it is not uncommon for developing nations that have high tourist rates to put more money into that rather than the poorer and less developed areas of that country. It is important that the reparations address the inequalities that still exist within each nation as a result of the transatlantic enslavement trafficking. Much of the wealth within these nations is in the hands of people who continue to benefit from the enslavement through intergenerational wealth. Reparations must not be used to widen the gap between the nation's poorest and wealthiest citizens. Outside support can provide impartial and objective advice, directing funds towards communities who are disadvantaged as a result of the slave trade. This party also believes that countries like the UK will be able to give guidance as they have had many past experiences and have learnt where the best places to put certain amounts of money is. Reparations are a way for nations to build relationships and become allies. Not only this, but it is a way for former colonizers to help understand the impact, as they would have to understand the current state as well as the past in order for it to improve. It would also help them learn from those countries in how they have been so resilient since enslavement. Countries paying the reparations are not coming in as superiors, but as people who want to help with the building of a nation, your equals. The definition for reparations goes as follows. The action of making amends for a wrong one has done, by providing payment or other assistance to those who have been wronged. The key word in there would be assistance. Former colonizers can help assist nations in where to put money as part of the reparations. We believe that former colonizers assisting in the decisions made about where the reparations are spent is the best way to move forward as a society and to come together to really acknowledge and repair as much of the damage caused by enslavement as possible. We also believe that it doesn't undermine the sincerity of reparations and that former colonizers are not trying to take control of reparations, but are simply trying to lend a helping hand. The idea of this is not uncommon, as many countries help other nations in order for the world to grow and evolve as a society as people, as it can be the easiest way for everyone to coexist. Reparations are not being paid for former colonizers to have control over other countries. They are being paid to give back from nations they took so much from without giving them a choice. They are acknowledging the wrongful past actions of former colonizers, and although we know that we will never fully understand the impacts of the transatlantic slave trafficking and other forms of enslavement, we want to guide where the reparation money is paid in order to best benefit the citizens of those countries. Point of information accepted.
Ask the question, please, Clarendon.
No, she can continue.
Okay, continue, Rawlins.
That's all, thank you.
All right, and thank you very much. Now, at this point in time, we're going to enter into the second period of cross-examination, and in so doing, invite the opposition team to pose questions to the proposing team. Ready when you are.
You say that with the only reason the former colonizers would want to have control over, well, not control, but influence the reparations is so that it can benefit them. In what way do you think that it would benefit them?
Okay, so as I presented in my example where Britain have paid reparation to Kenya, and now they use that reparation in the best interest of Britain itself, where they have tied to the British economy. So we are saying that in most cases, our example that I have shown earlier, that countries that pay reparation and continue to have influence over it, influence the political and economy of the former colony.
We are not talking about the past, we're talking about now and talking about what's going on now. Can you give us some reasons why it would not affect now and why we should not ever say today? Not in another situation, but today.
Okay, so first and foremost, this will lead to the misuse of property. It will lead to exploitation, cultural exploitation, economic exploitation, as they will basically have say in what they use their money for. Thirdly, this has already occurred before. It's not like it's the first time it's occurred. We see where it has occurred in Kenya. So we see that there's a precedent. Once is a mistake, but twice is a fool, Mr. Speaker. So if we make the same mistake again, we're basically giving them the same opportunity to exploit us again. We're giving them the same opportunity to have control over our economy, over.
All right, and your final question, Rawlins?
How is it not respecting the sovereignty of the Caribbean if in every other country, when money is given, there is always a group to make sure it is not misused? Clarendon College, would you like to respond?
Clarendon, the floor is yours.
It seems they are frozen.
Okay.
Oh.
Right, Clarendon College, I'm seeing you and we're waiting on your response. But until then, I want to remind you of some of our key sponsors. The reason why we're here witnessing this engaging debate between the two schools: the University of the West Indies, CARICOM, the CARICOM Reparations Commission, the Center for Reparations Research, the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment, the P.J. Patterson Institute for Africa-Caribbean Public Advocacy,
Was the third
the
question asked?
University of Hull, and finally, the Repair campaign. Thank you very much to our partners and sponsors. We will now resume the debate. We'll ask Rawlins Academy to field their last question once again to Clarendon College. Clarendon College, you will then respond. Rawlins, your question, please.
Are former colonizers not respecting the sovereignty of the Caribbean when any other sum of money is given to another country, there is always a group to prevent misuse from both parties?
Clarendon College. All right, so we seem to be having some technical difficulties with Clarendon College. We just want them to indicate if it is that they're able to hear. But in the meantime, let us have a revision of what we are here debating. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, the motion before us is a really topical one and a very important one. Yes, one that questions whether or not former colonizers should have any sort of influence over reparations that they are paying. And of course, as you've been following along, I am sure that you have formed your own opinions on the matter. We want to hear from you. If you're over watching us on YouTube from the Center for Reparations Research's YouTube page, I want to hear you in the chat. Tell us, what are your thoughts on the matter? Should former colonizers have any influence over decisions regarding the use of the reparations? Or is that a privilege that should only be reserved to the victims of the enslavement? That is the question that we're asking today. Quite a topical one.
Are you hearing us?
Indeed, Clarendon College, we are hearing you. The question is, are you hearing
I'm not
us?
hearing you. Oh my God.
Are you hearing us, Clarendon? And while we wait for Clarendon College, we want to just give you a rundown of the matches that have taken place so far. As I said earlier, this is day 4, the final day of competition. So far, we've seen teams from all across the Caribbean and the international scene in the UK, for example, battling it out. In match 1, we had the Queen's College from Guyana fighting off against Barrackpore West Secondary School from Trinidad and Tobago, questioning the motion, questioning the effectiveness of South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation model. In that match, Queen's College reigned victorious. In match 2 of this competition, we saw York Castle High School and Arima North Secondary School from Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, respectively, fight it out whether or not descendants of enslavers should be directly responsible for reparations. And in that match, York Castle unfortunately lost that match. Arima North Secondary School was able to come out the victors of that match. The best speaker of that match was, of course, Casey Martin. Then the final match on day 1, we had a no-show from the other team, but Holy Childhood High automatically advanced. But they had to face the brunt and rigor of the judges, because at that point in time, in the absence of an opponent, they were forced to sit and field questions from the judges, field points of information. And I want to say we were not very charitable to them. You know, in fact, we were quite harsh, and I am very happy to say that the team Holy Childhood High School held their own. And the best speaker from that match was Dejane Walsh. So even though they got an automatic advancement, it was not without blood, sweat, and tears. And the team Holy Childhood High should feel very proud of themselves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, would have concluded day 1 of competition. On Wednesday, we had day 2, in which we saw San Fernando East Secondary School fighting it out against the Carteret College, or they would have. However, DC was not present, and so San Fernando East got an automatic advancement. And similarly to Holy Childhood, they had to face the rigor and bluntness of the judges. The best speaker from that engagement was Amia London. The next match saw Bishop's High School in Tobago fighting off against Pleasantville Secondary in Trinidad, questioning whether or not post-colonial states should focus on the past or the future. At the end of that debate, Pleasantville Secondary School won on 274 points. Bishop's High School came in second with a very, very admirable score of 273 points. That's 273 points is nothing to scoff at, even if that team lost this match. And in fact, there are wildcard slots available for the best performing non-advancing team. At the end of these rounds of competition, we'll be able to tell who those teams are. And finally, on that day, we concluded with Montego Bay High School versus St. Joseph's Covenant High School, debating whether or not slavery should be a state or individual obligation. Montego Bay High School was victorious on 276 points, and the best speaker of that match was Rihanna Barker. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have had rigorous competition. We've had rigorous competition throughout. And in fact, that was only day 2 of 4. 2 more days of competition were held. And I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you've been on the edge of your seats for every single one of these matches. On day 3 of competition, we saw the team Glenmuir High School face off against C.V. Bessel Senior High School. And they questioned whether or not Britain's Industrial Revolution would have been significantly delayed without the transatlantic slave trade. Now that was a contentious battle. Glenmuir High School won that debate, skyrocketing themselves to the top of the leaderboard at 282 points to C.V. Bessel's 272 points. C.V. Bessel now vying for that wildcard slot. I see that we have the team Clarendon College online. Clarendon, can you confirm that you are ready to proceed? Clarendon, can you confirm that you are indeed ready to proceed?
Are you hearing us?
Yes, we're hearing you, guys. Can you confirm that you are hearing us?
We are barely hearing. We're trying to sort out the audio problem.
Oh, but we hear you responding, Clarendon College. So, if we, so we want to
type the question in the chat.
Yes, please add the question to the chat, Rawlins. And Clarendon College, confirm that you can hear us and respond to that question, please.
It's not good. It's not good. Guys, we're not there's no more cross-examinations.
Add back the Bluetooth speaker.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, while we continue our wait, I know that you've been paying keen attention to the match recaps, and you would recognize that coming out of match 1 on day 3 successfully was Glenmuir High School, and the best debater from that match was Joshua Smith from Glenmuir High School. In the second match of day 3, we had a no-show from Manchester High, and Hampton School automatically advanced to round 2. Of course, as is always the case, they had to face the blunt rigor points of information from the judges, and they did so and advanced. The best debater from that match was Zamoy Francis from Hampton School. And the final match that concluded day 3 saw Jonathan Grant High School facing off against Campion College in that hotly contested match surrounding whether the abolition of slavery was driven by economic interest or moral concerns. Team Campion College secured a victory, ending on 277 points to Jonathan Grant's 272. 73 points. Another particularly high-scoring match, especially for the non-advancing team, Jonathan Grant. The best debater from that match came to us not from the winning team, but instead from the non-advancing team, Jonathan Grant, and that was Twain Henry. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all caught up. We've gone through all 10 matches that have taken place so far. We are here on match number 11. The winners from these next series of match will join the ranks of those others who have qualified by winning in round 2. And the losers or non-advancing teams from this match will be competing rigorously to see if they have the highest score, or at least are in the top 4 for the non-advancing teams in terms of speaker points to secure those coveted 4 wildcard slots for round 2. It has been a wonderful, wonderful experience so far. Indeed, it has. And we're looking forward to seeing what the rest of the matches have in store for us today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go to a short break, but we will be back with you very soon to conclude this debate and most certainly to press on and figure out who the remaining teams advancing to round 2 will be. But until then, we will see you very shortly. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. The question and answered posed to Clarendon College. Rawlins Academy asked, could you define the meaning of influence and that it is not control? Clarendon College, the field is yours to answer that question. All right, thank you very much. At this point in time, we will now invite the final speaker from Rawlins Academy to conclude the debate for that side of the house. And that speaker is Isla Chauhan. Isla, the floor is yours.
Good morning, esteemed panel and fellow debaters. I'm Isla Chauhan and I'll be your third speaker. Former colonizers should not
Oh wait, it's not that. It's the cross-examination.
Sorry,
we were confused.
Indeed. So Clarendon College, the floor is indeed yours to pose your questions to Rawlins Academy. So we'll allow for Clarendon College the same privilege. You may pose your questions to Rawlins, Clarendon College. Yes, you can go ahead, Clarendon College, with your first question.
Okay, so our first question is that, to my opponents, if a thief stole money, do they have the right to dictate how the victim spend it? If not, why should former colonizers have that right?
Out of restorative justice, and due to the fact that that is very personal, and this is a global phenomenon, and it is a thing where two are helping each other and paying reparations. This is in no way like stealing something, because this is paying back for something, and it is also due to the fact that we are making sure that the enslavement matters.
Okay. My second question
we are holding...
is... Oh, sorry.
No, continue.
If former colonies are independent nation, why should they be treated as incapable of handling their own economic decisions?
Question, please. Can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, I was saying that if former colonies are independent nations, why should they still be treated as Jesus.
Clarendon, you can complete your question.
Clarendon College, could you repeat the question, please?
Okay, so the question was, again, if former colonies are independent nation, why should they still be treated as incapable of handling their own economic decisions?
Not say they're incapable of making their own economic decisions. We only propose influence and the ability to provide resources and the ability to provide advice and help, because we have had more time to create an socioeconomic system, whereas they've had less time. This is due to slavery and the impacts, but we should be allowed to help even out and create it and draw out the potential of the Caribbean by helping and assisting and having influence. Thank you.
Thank you. And your final question, Clarendon College.
Okay, so if former colonizers genuinely regret their past action, why do they insist on maintaining influence over every nation they harmed?
Acknowledge what they've done and realize what they did wasn't the best of their choices, but them realizing that they've made a mistake is more influential than
anything else they could have done.
Yeah.
To truly acknowledge they must be there and they must be able to have influence over it.
Take accountability.
And to take accountability for their actions.
A better future.
And help them to a better developed future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes that period of cross-examination. At this point in time, we invite Isla Chauhan to present her reply speech.
Good morning, esteemed panel and fellow debaters. Former colonizers should not just have some influence over how the reparations are spent. It's not just about handing over money, it's about ensuring that the reparations create a lasting, meaningful impact on the countries that were once colonized. First, it's important to understand that reparations aren't just about the money, they're about making sure that the funds are used effectively. If former colonizers are involved in the decision-making process, they can help ensure that the money goes towards projects that will truly benefit the country. Their involvement shows that they are taking responsibility for the damage caused by colonization. It also allows them to make sure the reparations reach those who need it the most. One key reason former colonizers should have some say is their expertise. They have valuable knowledge in areas like development and education. Their experience can make sure that the money is spent effectively. For example, they can support projects that are most crucial. They can help train people to make them into professionals, ensuring that the reparations are making money used properly. With former colonizers involved, there is a greater chance that funds won't be misused. They can help monitor the money and how it's spent, ensuring that it benefits those who suffered the most from colonization. Also, former colonizers should not just be involved in creating long-term solutions. Reparations are not just about a one-time handout. They should help create lasting change. By working together with the country, former colonizers can help make the improvement through reparations sustainable. This collaboration can also open doors for future opportunities too. Finally, there is moral responsibility for former colonizers to help the countries they once controlled. Colonization caused immense harm, and it's only fair that those responsible contribute fixing the damage. By having a say on how reparations are spent, former colonizers can help ensure that the money is directed towards the most meaningful change and real progress for people who were hurt the most. There are strong reasons why former colonizers should have some influence over how reparations are spent. Their support can guide the process to ensure funds are used wisely, making a real difference for the country. By working together, they can help ensure that reparations lead to lasting positive change for people who need it the most. Allow former colonizers allowing the former colonizers to apologize and work with the Caribbean to create a socio-economic development program. No dollar figure can accurately cost the damage caused by enslavement, but compensation effort must be by those who plan. Ensured that and carried out the indigenous genocide throughout enslavement. We want to close the wealth gap. Thank you.
And thank you very much. For the final speaker from Team Rawlins Academy, we now invite the reply speaker from Team Clarendon College, Shanna K. Wills, to conclude this debate. The floor is yours, Shanna K.
I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. All protocols observed represent Martin. As the third speaker of the opposition, it is my duty to highlight the clashes of the debate and state why the proposition remains the superior team. First, I'd like to point out the flaws depicted in the opposition speech. We live in a world, the opposition stated that we live in a different world. Yes, but isn't a world that is completely affected by, isn't it a world that is completely affected by these wrongs economically, socially, and culturally? The impact is that we see where everybody is suffering. All the post-colonized areas are suffering now from the long-lasting devastating effects of colonization. The second speaker of the opposition stated that post-colonized areas ask for reparation, but this is something that is old. They are not asking for reparation. More experience. The opposition also stated that post-colonizers have more experience. But I want to ask a question to the opposition. Are you implying that post-colonized nations are not civilized enough to basically know what to do with their money, know how to utilize their money? And I want to also point out that they misinterpreted the goal of reparation. The goal of reparation is to give money to try and rectify by creating a socio-economic culture. The opposition is clearly conformed with us, Mr. Speaker, and the opposition has failed to give remedies in an instance where former colonizers retain influence over the use of reparation. There is a significant risk that funds will be allocated based on the interests of the former colonizers rather than the needs of the community. The oppositions are contradicting themselves as they said that they would use neutral agency. The first speaker specifically, they also stated that post-colonized nation economy is strong enough to do without the aid of colonizers, and they would assist education and policies the post-colonized nations are living in. But Mr. Speaker, we are more than capable. Let me highlight the clashes now. The clash of accountability. The opposition definition of accountability is flawed. You recognize your wrongs and compensate for it. Not tell other persons what to do or provide, not to do with the money that you have paid, but provide an apology. In this case, this is reparation. Accountability can be ensured through independent international bodies, as my first speaker has stated before, such as the United Nations, that do not allow for colonial powers to retain influence over the decision-making process. These nations are the same entities that caused the harm in the first place. Why should they retain power over the remedy? The clash of the purpose of reparation is the second one. The opposition misrepresents the moral purpose of reparation. Reparations are not about diplomacy or fostering bilateral relations. They are about justice, restitution, and the acknowledgement of wrongs. They are about putting the money to effect. But post-colonizers have proven to basically have manipulated their use of power. It is clear that the opposition is undermining post-colonized nation abilities. All countries have expertise. For example, Jamaica, Nigel Clark, our former Minister of Finance, who is now working as the deputy president of the IMS, is a living proof that everyone has expertise. Therefore, we don't need them to tell us what to do with our money, as we are civilized enough. And a proof of that is Botswana. Botswana gained independence from Britain in 1966, as my second speaker has stated, with limited infrastructure and economic instability. Today, it is one of Africa's most stable democracies with strong institutions, low corruption, and an economy driven by prudent management of diamond revenues. Botswana's effective governance proves that post-colonial nations can develop sustainable economic policies without foreign oversight or influence. Proper distribution of funds is the next clash I'm going to speak about. My first speaker has literally given examples of how post-colonized areas are civilized enough to highlight their issues and fix the problem. This argument, the opposition argument fundamentally overlooks the issue of sovereignty. Why should former colonizers have any role in determining how the affected nation use the funds that were owed to them as reparation? Post-colonial nations must have full control over the allocation of reparations to address their own unique needs and priorities. The proposition is clearly supreme as we talked about the risks from colonizers' influence and how we are able to rule, how the post-colonized areas are able to rule themselves. Yet the opposition failed to give remedies as how they plan to ensure that this influence, quote unquote, does not lead to dictatorship. We see where the opposition also talked about collaborative efforts, saying that it would create alliance rather than reconciliation. But allowing former colonizers to have a say in reparations can create an environment of mistrust where affected communities may feel their voices are not being heard or respected. As my second speaker has said, true reconciliation requires a shift in power dynamics where former colonizers step back and allow affected communities to lead the conversation about healing and development. Let me summarize our points and tell you why we've won. Reparations are an acknowledgement of guilt, not a bargaining chip, as my first speaker said. The payment of reparations by former colonizers is an acknowledgement of their historical wrongdoings and the harm caused. Once reparations are paid, their responsibility should end, as my second speaker said. Any continued influence over how reparations are spent only undermines the very purpose of reparations, which is to restore the autonomy and dignity of post-colonial nations. The second point that was brought up by the proposition is reparations are about restoring sovereignty and autonomy. The essence of reparation is to empower post-colonial nations to rebuild and make independent decisions about their future. Allowing former colonizers to influence how reparations are allocated strips these nations of their rights of self-determination and perpetuates a colonial
time. Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you very much to the final speaker from Clarendon College. And thank you both teams for an engaging and wonderful debate. At this point in time, the judges will now excuse themselves to have a discussion and return to you with the results of this match.
I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. Good day, everyone. My name is Shanaka Willis, the first speaker of this house, and we are here to firmly affirm the vote that Clarendon College should be selected to be a part of the international reparation debate. Now, what is reparation? Reparation is basically compensation for whatever harm has been done to somebody in the past. Point of information. Not accepted at this time. It is essential for reconciliation and cohabitation within our society, which is why we firmly believe that Clarendon College should be selected. Point of accepted. Are you aware that this is a debate? I'm aware very well. And what are you guys trying to say? You didn't even allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Akira Hornes, the reply speaker of this house. And I am Ciara Simpson, the second speaker of this house. I am Shanaka Willis, the first speaker of this house. We have been learning about our history from as young as the age of 7. As history and law students, we have been learning about reparations for a while, and we believe that this is our opportunity to express what we learn and grow a deeper knowledge as to what reparation is and its significance to society. And you should consider us to be a part of the international reparations debate.
Reparations are important to me because few people know about them despite the impact they could have on all of us. We all need to be in the conversation for reparations so we can hear both sides.
The reparations are important to us. Slavery is a massive part of history.
And we can't leave it just because it happened in the past.
And the wrongs and their impact should be discussed. We're all very passionate about this. And we all think it is incredibly important.
And that's why we would like to be
The Center for Reparation Research is thrilled to launch this International Reparation Debate Competition. This International Reparation Debate Competition that we launched today for secondary schools is one of our most important projects. How do we engage youth on matters of reparatory justice? The change needed in the education system can only be advanced when the youth are engaged and their voices are heard.
Why is reparation so important in and for the Caribbean? Because time comes for justice for our ancestors. Time comes for the Caribbean to insist on the right to development, to be compensated for the violence against our ancestors. So outreach to the young people who have joined this movement is critical.
And this initiative is phenomenal. And you know why? Because it's engaging with young people. And it's young people that I believe, are going to be the future of the reparatory justice movement. The greatest weapon that there is in this whole fight for reparatory justice is the young people of today. I hope this debate spurs a whole new generation of advocates for reparatory justice, and the UK and the EU have got to make amends for the ills of the transatlantic slavery. This is going to be a phenomenal competition.
There is no mass movement that isn't a youth movement. And we certainly want reparations to be a mass movement. So it's really exciting, though, to have a regional / international debating competition. And I'm looking forward to your participation as you construct your arguments for and against, remembering that the 10-point plan for reparatory justice is our guiding framework for the areas in which we are demanding compensation, because we certainly want to impact the public opinion and awareness in Europe. So it's fantastic to have the United Kingdom participating as well.
So why is it important for youth to be involved in the reparation movement? Being involved in the reparations movement is critical to youth if one is to know their history so that they can understand why their societies are functioning as they are today. The future of the countries we live in are dependent on the current situation that exists today in our countries. And these current conditions were created by the past, including indigenous genocide, African enslavement, indentureship, and colonization. Being involved in reparations is about seeking justice, seeking a way to reduce inequalities in our own countries and then in the broader world. It's about seeking a more peaceful and balanced world, where global problems are solved in partnerships, not in isolation. I believe the sponsors are hoping this competition will allow our youth to gain knowledge about the past so that as young people, you'll be able to make better decisions in the future and make our countries better places.
We know that we need to understand stories about people that look like us. So the fact that so many of you young people have registered was so encouraged by your enthusiasm and your passion for wanting to enter this debate. It is so important. It's just at the core of who we are, that we need to understand where we come from, understand our true history, and having a debate competition on this particular topic is such an important milestone. To have a real conversation about repair, and the fact that our young people were so articulate with their presentations, and to ensure that we keep educating our young people, because you are the future of us and are the Caribbean's a sustainable future. So congratulations, everybody.
We are looking forward to the debate. Encourage everyone to join the debate. Thank you so much, all.
Where's the justice for the 5 million enslaved Africans trafficked to the Caribbean? Think about it. Chattel slavery didn't just end. It left deep, painful scars across each Caribbean country. The deliberate underdevelopment, the brutal trauma and violence we inherited. It's time to repair this damage so we can build thriving, sustainable economies where young people like us can dream big, achieve more, and live better lives right here in our own home. Do you see why repair matters? Stand with us. Join the calls for justice and sign the petition for reparations at repaircampaign.org/petition.
It's very important that this is understood, because we can't talk about legacies before talking about what left those legacies on our landscape. Enslaved Africans were subjected to the worst atrocities imaginable: kidnapping, storage in filthy barracoons, the Middle Passage, forced drowning as in the case of the slaver Zong, branding with hot iron, including by the church, with SPG being seared into the flesh of those they owned, unrelenting field and factory labor, legal codes that rendered them non-human, and harsh punishments when they resisted enslavement, deportation, dismemberment, hanging, imprisonment, severe flogging, including of women and the children. According to Lucille Matherin Mayer, and I quote, "Neither age nor pregnancy exempted women from corporal punishment. Rather, they were laid down in the filthiest place the driver could find for floggings. Child labor was rampant, and women and girls faced sexual violence." Orlando Patterson wrote in his Sociology of Slavery the following: "The sexual exploitation of female slaves by white men was the most disgraceful aspect of Jamaican slave society." Unfortunately, the church was complicit in this crime against humanity. Initially, Christian planters did not think that the African was of theological significance. According to Elsa Gavaya, and I quote, "Early English slave law almost totally neglected the enslaved as a subject for religious instruction, as a member of a family, or as a member of society possessing some rights, as the same rights as everyone else."
Did you grow up on Anansi stories? Yep, most of us have. But did you know that Anansi played a major role in our ancestors' survival? So let's talk about it. He's more than just a trickster spider. He was a means of inspiration for resistance.
Anansi's cleverness in outsmarting his rivals mirrored tactics enslaved people used in their daily lives. By pretending to be foolish or inept, a technique known as play fool for catch wise, enslaved people lower their enslavers' expectations and reduce suspicion. These methods, inspired by Anansi, are known as Anansi tactics, or in Chui from Ghana, Anansi Sem. Anansi outwitted powerful animals and even white enslavers using cunning and wit. During the plantation era, Anansi tales were shared in enslaved quarters and sometimes in front of European enslavers. These stories, recorded in journals, reveal how enslaved people used public performances to mask hidden defiance. Plantation whites often miss the rebellious messages in these tales. Caribbean Anansi stories depict him evading punishment, tricking enslavers, and a whole plethora of adventures which highlight the resistance and survival through Anansi tactics.
400 years ago, my people were dragged from their homes, tribes, families, placed on floating wood, and shipped across the Atlantic to what will be later described as the most inhumane act of all time. Cold, dark, uncomfortable, cannot describe the trip in ships where whips did not fail to miss. Injustice, rape and disgrace, blood rains, brute, force, ignorance, hate in their veins. Sweat and tears, labor revealed, produce from king fields only for the esteemed. 400 years of eroding one's pride, culture, heritage, value. 400 years of the iron chain, stringing up, leaving bare. Oh, but they never cared. Why fight when you will be met with sharp blades? So don't you dare cry out in fear. Why not plan escape with the plaiting of one's hair? the drums, listen, dance, communicate. For tonight, we fight a battle not even death could spare. Blue eyes, white skin, Master said that's beauty within. But guess what? Black, brown, gold, royalty, reparations, we are owed. Them say hassa, but we say cassava. That's where we get our strength from to beat and conquer. For tonight, we're returning to Ghana. You may say, I'm a descendant of slaves because of the rich melanin that gushes from my pores. But I came to tell you tonight, I am not a slave. Rather the descendant of kings and queens. I am the embodiment of the divine. I do not chase, I align, I attract. What's meant for me already has my name on it. I am the personification of beauty, the expression of love, the creator of life, the acknowledgement of freedom. So go ahead, call me what you want, because when I die, bury me in the oceans where my ancestors jumped from the ships, because they knew death was better than bondage.
And here's what does need reparative justice. It is the seasoning period when we landed on the soil and they took away our names and our gods and our culture, and no slave system that we understand thus far has ever had that deculturalization process embedded in the process of our enslavement. So our enslavement was not just physical, it was not just culture, it was spiritual, because you took me away from everything. Who then must I look up to? Who then must I emulate? Who then must I kill myself in order to elevate you?
What is common about the wealth? A flag raises high, but the strings still pull from London. We sing our anthems in borrowed tongues, march to the beat of siphons' drums, celebrating a freedom that still pays tribute. Independent? What is that when the governor's shadow still lingers? They tell us, we free. Tell that to the bones at Rappery. The 196 who fought and won only to drown in chains. Our Negmawan. Do the people of North Devon not hear the howls raging for their home? The tide spits their cries, their names foam in fury, salted by a sea that will not forget. They call us independent, yet a crown still sits above 14 nations, still bent at the knee, still ruled by a throne built from our gold. They took our labor, snatched our names, they welcomed our craft, then cast us adrift. Windrush mothers, fathers, exiled from the empire they built. What is common about the wealth? Our persistent potency that perseveres through acute artistry. We carve language into legacy, turn sorrow into song, drum resistance as rhythm, sink steel into symphony. We are the architects of new worlds, the poets, the painters, the prophets, who make home in remnants still, who forge futures from fractured pasts. They took the wealth, but we are the riches.
And remember that chattel slavery of the African people was also genocide. This is not highlighted sufficiently. If you take my home island of Barbados in the Caribbean, the British brought 600,000 people into Barbados. 600,000 Africans were brought into Barbados. The black population of Barbados today is 280,000. How do you reduce 600,000 to 290,000 after 200 years? They brought 3 million into Jamaica. At the end of the slavery malarkey, there were just about 600,000. The survival rate of African people in the Caribbean was about 17%. It was horrendous.
The Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community.
But I will say to you, therefore, that the issue of reparations for the transatlantic slavery is an issue that we will take up with you, and that the appropriate apology and compensation is paid, and that the international community acts.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. We have just concluded match number 11 in round 1 of the reparation debate, the International Reparation Debate Competition 2025, where the teams discuss whether or not former colonizers
in the next 5 minutes
should have an influence over decisions regarding the use of reparations they have played. In proposition, Clarendon College; in opposition, Rawlins Academy. After deliberation, the panel has decided unanimously that the team that has won this match and will be moving on to round 2 of this competition is the team in proposition, Clarendon College. Congratulations, Clarendon College, and well fought to the Rawlins Academy. The best speaker from this match comes to us from Clarendon College, Shaniqua Lewin. She was the best debater of the match. Congratulations, Shaniqua. The judges would also like to give great commendations to the first speaker from the Rawlins Academy, Clara Byford. While she was not the best speaker in this debate, we think that she performed quite well in this match. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The winner, Clarendon College. The points separating the teams, Clarendon College on 271 points and Rawlins Academy ending on 260 points. Ladies and gentlemen, at 12 p.m., we will be engaging in match 12 of this competition, where we will see the Bishop Gibson High School for Girls from Jamaica facing off against Colegio Prof. de Alejandro Paula from Curacao. And they will be debating the motion. This house would prioritize future-oriented policies over continued reflection on colonial injustices. Ladies and gentlemen, until then, I am Ravan, signing out.